I'd like to welcome you to the Audit Committee of the State Bar of California. I am Mark Tony. I serve as chair, and I'm calling the meeting to order. And what I would like to do is to ask for the roll to be called.
Barahona,
Present.
Buenaventura. Buenaventura, no. Huser,
Present.
Stevens. Stevens, you're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Tony,
Present.
we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So here's what we're going to do with this meeting. We have an hour and a half. We have a number of things to do. We are going to start out with public comment because public comment is very important. However, we're not going to be able to provide 2 hours for public comment for a meeting that lasts an hour and a half. The math just doesn't work very well. So, what we're going to do is the plan is to provide around 25 minutes for public comments, 25 minutes for items that require voting, and 25 minutes for items that are report only. That makes sure that we get the top priorities done. Priority 1, public comment. Priority 2, the items on which we need to vote and make a decision. And then we'll move to the items that have reports. So I'm going to open up public comment. When we get to the 25-minute mark, I will entertain a motion that will modify and clarify the rules that will basically suspend the 2 hours length of public comment and suspend them to be the 25 minutes. The only comment I want to make is I take responsibility for developing and drafting the public comment policy for the state bar because we didn't have one when I joined. I will say that my intent was that the 2 hours was for state bar full meetings, and it was never intended for an hour-long committee meeting. So we will end up modifying the rules at a later date, but I just wanted people to know. So let's go ahead and, without further ado, open up public comment. And if I could ask Angela, the committee coordinator, do we have advanced signups? And I'm going to limit to 2 minutes, just so that we can get as many as possible into time period.
We do have 5 advanced signups. The first one is phone number ending in 5792. If you are in the attendee pool, please raise your hand so you can give your public comment. 5792.
Great. And if we could have a 2-minute clock once people start speaking, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
I'm not seeing a 5792, so I'll move on to the next sign up, which is Jasmine Wolterding Williams. Jasmine, if you're in the attendee pool, please raise your hand at this time. Not seeing Jasmine. The next sign up is Drew Spears. Drew, please raise your hand. No, Drew. The fourth sign up is Carrie Poppy. Carrie, please raise your hand. Not seeing Carrie. And the last public sign up is Angel Ahala. Angel, you can raise your hand. So having not seen Angel, we'll continue with the people who would like to give public comment at this time. So the first person is Gabriela Posala. Gabriela, let me. Gabriela, are you there? Okay, Gabriela, you can speak when you're ready.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gabriela Posada. I am here this morning as a test taker that took the February 2025 California bar exam. I am a test taker with disabilities whose accommodations were violated every single day, all 4 days that it took the California bar exam. I'm here because I'm imploring you to please, please, please provide a pathway to licensure for students or test takers whose accommodations were violated during the February bar exam without us having to take the bar exam again. And I also understand that this is not a full bar meeting, but I do see like a dire need for there to be meetings that are specific to accommodated students and test takers to get remedies for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public commenter is California bar examinee. You can start your public comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I am also an examinee of the February 2025 exam who was granted accommodations but did not receive them. I just want to employ everyone again to think about those who were not able and were locked out of their exams for over 2 hours. And not only that, being interrupted by these proctors, some of which did not even understand English. I cried. One proctor told me to call the bar. The other proctor told me, don't worry about it. You cannot just accept a blanket 40 points or 80 points for people to pass, because those who had a loss of time that was so severe, there's
I'm sorry, we lost your
the other
audio.
people. I have started comparing. Can you hear me?
We lost your audio for a minute. If we'll give her an extra 30 seconds at the end to finish, but keep going.
Okay. It took the California bar from the day of the test until a couple of days ago last week to respond to me that since I'm in a separate class that they'll get back to me. I don't know what to do. I can't eat, I can't sleep. I couldn't even drink water. I am under medical care right now. Please look into something and tell the accommodated people what you plan to do. We all don't live in California. I can't come and take the test in July. That'll be
Apologies, but your time has expired, ma'am.
We're giving her a few more minutes.
Okay, yeah.
A few more seconds because she had a interruption. Keep going, please.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. The parts that I was not blocked out on my essays, I scored 70 and 65. But on the multiple choice questions, when I was locked out, I'm getting like 13%. But in the same subject, 70% on the essays. That right there should show you that something is wrong. I just want you to make this right. Please give us full licensure. You know, if you want us to do extra hours, let us do that. But the provisional license alone is not going to be enough. We will not be whole. And since we were neglected and violated, please make us whole. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Our next public commenter is Bree. Your mic has been enabled.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I also am an accommodated examinee and I took the February 2025 bar exam. I experienced severe disruptions and harm, and I was told that I would be able to retake portions of my tests, and then I was given conflicting information, never actually got to retake the portions that I was locked out of. I was told psychometrically appropriate scoring adjustments would be made. However, the remedies, and I'm just agreeing and echoing the previous two commenters, but the remedies that have been presented to all of us as a group are exclusionary and biased and unrepresentative of the specific harms that accommodated test takers experienced, especially if we're thinking about the psychometric scoring adjustments. There is specific guidance by the American Educational Research Association, the APA, and the National Council on the Measurement in Education as it applies to standards for education and psychological testing, and specifically with the psychometric scoring adjustments, we were compared and they applied the same things. And there are critical differences in our experiences, both in our testing days. Majority of us experienced specifically harms during the performance test, which was day 2, when the greatest issues with the exam were taking place, specifically with the platform. I just want to highlight that we've experienced compounding harms that have not been addressed. As a subclass, we need to be acknowledged at the very least, because we do need a separate remedy. And I agree completely. The provisional license without a path to licensure is not beneficial to any of us. And if anything, forcing individuals with disabilities to undergo something that has already been especially traumatizing and disproportionately impacted us in a negative way is harmful. And I'm sorry, I realize I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Our next public commenter is A. Your mic has been enabled.
Hi, good morning. I didn't expect to be speaking today, but given that others have been heard, I just wanted to take the opportunity. So I'm an accommodated test taker as well. On day 2 was the PT, and I had been testing about 13 hours on that day. It was 1 in the morning when the technicians finally fixed their Guardian browser that they kicked me off of. And the proctor had guaranteed that I would get the chance to do it another day, since I had the multiple choice on day 3 in the morning. So I trusted my proctor, and I even said, "Are you sure? I'm afraid if I leave, I won't be able to finish my PT." And he said, "Yes, basically, we're sure." And I have the transcript. I put it as a public comment at the May 9th meeting. But basically, I got a 40 on my PT as a result, and that's the lowest I've ever gotten. I've took the bar. This was my 6th time. I got 80s, 70s, 75s, and now it's a 40. So it's it's clear as day. Like, that's not my score. That's not what I deserve. I had so much time left. So please, for accommodated takers, can you please, for the PT, provide some type of remedy that can fix this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Our next public commenter is Christine. Christine, you can start your comment.
Hello. First, I wanted to say thank you for meeting, and I really appreciate all of the time you've spent going over different remedies for us and trying to get this figured out. I know it can't be easy. I was a second read recipient, and I just wanted to ask if you would comment on if there was any timeline, or if you could discuss it today, some of the things you were talking about on the Friday meeting with the Board of Trustees. I know you were considering doing the higher of the 2 scores instead of averaging them, under which I would pass if I did the higher of the 2 scores versus the average. I also had a lot of issues during my exam, like many others. So I would really appreciate it. And I would love if you could discuss it today, because I know there's many others like me who need to know if they need to start studying or if they might be able to pass and not have to take the July exam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just respond by saying, because this is the Audit Committee and not the full board, we are not able to discuss this on our agenda today. The other thing is that the recommendations that we voted on at the Friday special board meeting those are being forwarded to the Supreme Court, which has the authority to make the final decision. But thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Larry Tran. Your mic has been enabled.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Tony. I heard what you just said, so I won't beat the dead horse any further, but I do want to emphasize, it's been discussed on Reddit, that the State Bar's lawsuit against Measure actually alleges claims of disruptions, issues, and technological issues that made the bar exam itself unfair. So there is a discrepancy there. So it's not fair to judge us on something that you allege Measure of messing up. So how are we supposed to be graded fairly when the game was broken before we even played it? So I just wanted to speak on that. And also on Reddit, someone mentioned something about an emergency meeting. If you guys can initiate that, I would be very grateful. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And there are no more raised hands.
I want to thank everybody who provided public comment this morning. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the rest of the agenda. I gotta look at my little cheat sheet here. The next on the agenda is the chair's report. I'm gonna go ahead and dispense with that so that we can get to the rest of the meeting. The next item is approval of the February 5th open session minutes. And I want to ask if there are any corrections or modifications to the open session minutes. If there are no corrections or questions, then I will entertain a motion to approve the February 5th, 2025 open session minutes.
Approved.
Okay, we have Trustee Stevens making the motion.
I'll second.
All right, thank you very much. Trustee Barahona, seconds. I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura is absent. Huser,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye,
The minutes have been adopted.
thank you very much. Would you do me a favor and when we have motions, just announce what the vote total is?
Of course.
Okay, and the vote total for this one was?
The vote total was 4 in favor, and 0 no's and 1 absent.
All right, so the motion passes. Thank you very much. I sure appreciate it.
Of course.
I was remiss in not introducing our new committee coordinator at the beginning of the meeting, Angela Marloud. And this is her first meeting for her and I working together. And you know, sometimes at first meetings, you work things out in real time. So you're doing a great job, Angela. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair Tony.
So the next item is 2.2, which is adoption of the amendment to correct the January 19, 2023 open session minutes. And this had come up at the last meeting. This is a correction of a clerical error. And I was the only member of the audit committee that is that was at that meeting. And the other members of the audit committee requested an opportunity to review the transcript of that meeting so that they could feel comfortable in voting. So before we go any further, I want to ask, are there any questions that anyone has on the amendment to the January 19, 2023 minutes? Okay. Well, if not, I would entertain a motion to adopt the amendment to correct the January 19, 2023 open session minutes.
I'll move it.
Trustee Barahona makes the motion.
Second.
Trustee Stevens seconds. Thank you very much. I would like to ask for a roll call vote.
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura is absent. Huser,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now, the next item, which is 3.1, approval of the 2025 Q1 Board and Management Travel Expense Report. I have been, there's been a request from staff to postpone this item. And I am, as chair, going to honor that request from staff. This is not an urgent matter that is going to negatively impact anybody. So I thought it was reasonable to grant that request. So if there's no objection from any trustees, I would move on, or questions. I would move on to the business. That moves us to item 4.1, which is the audit, the annual audit for the State Bar, also including the Legal Services Trust Fund report. So I believe we have a presentation for us. All right. Looks like we have Coco Zhang, who is sharing her screen. Would you introduce yourself, please? Coco, I wonder if you might be on mute, but if you would introduce yourself, that'd be wonderful. Might still be on mute. I certainly can't hear anybody. Yes, I hear some.
Finally. Oh,
Thank
hi
you.
everyone. I'm Coco Zhang, the controller for the State Bar, from the Office of Finance. Nice to be here today.
Coco,
Thank you. Welcome.
Everyone see my screen in the right mode?
I can see your big screen. It says 2024 Annual Financial Statement Audit Reports.
Coco, your camera's not on though.
Oh, my camera? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you.
Finally. Sorry for the technical issues.
Oh, believe me, I understand that.
Okay. As just I introduced myself, I'm Coco from Finance. My pleasure to be here today to present on the 2024 annual financial statement audit and financial reports. So for today's presentation, I will first provide some background information on the financial statement audit and provide an overview of the bar's financial position at the end of 2024. Then I will turn it over to Annie. She's the audit partner from MGO, and she will present on the other results and other required communication to the committee. So moving on, starting on the background, the Audit Committee has oversight of responsibility on the financial statement audit. The State Bar is required to engage an external independent auditor to conduct the financial statement audit for each fiscal year. And all State Bar's financial report are due to the state legislature by May 31st, 2025 for the period covering from January 1st to December 31st, 2024. And moving on to the next slide, the submitted financial report packet included 4 reports for review. The three report were prepared by the State Bar from the Office of Finance and Office of Assets and Inclusion. Finance prepare the basic financial statement, including the MD&A, the statement notes, and other required information for disclosure purpose. The finance also prepare the statements of expenditure or mandatory fee in compliance with the Keller standard, making sure no mandatory fee were spent on the political or ideological expenses. In the meantime, the Office of Assets and Inclusion prepared the Legal Services Trust Fund report as per the provisions of Business and Professions Code, as shown on the screen. The report will provide information as to how the IOTA funds were distributed to the qualified legal services projects and entity. And the fourth report was prepared by MGO that Annie will elaborate on it further later. So moving on to the BAR's 2024 year-end position, the total asset and deferred outflow increased by 71 million, largely due to the higher trust account revenue resulting from the higher account balances. So costed the State Bar's cash and investment increased significantly by about $73 million. Additionally, accounts and other receivable increased by 1 million. Even though like this financial item was not that significant by looking at the change amount, but we would still like to highlight this as in the 2024 financial, the State Bar included the outstanding attorney debts for about 214 million, net of a 212 million estimated allowance for uncollectible account. So these debts have been outstanding for decades, and the State Bar has only been able to collect a fraction of it. And the estimated allowance was based on the historical collection data. So, however, there was another offset decrease in net asset in 2024 by about 6 million. There were no major project or asset purchase in 2024. So this decrease only reflected the normal asset depreciation, amortization, and retirements of certain like old assets associated with the San Francisco building office relocation. So on the liability side, total liability and deferred inflow decreased by 32 million. The main driver was lower unearned revenue in 2024. There was a change to the State Bar's licensee billing cycle. Unlike previous year that the State Bar will receive billing and cash starting in December for the following billing year. The 2025 billing cycle started in February 2025 instead of the December 2024. So therefore, there were no cash received or unearned revenue recorded in 2024 for 2025. So moreover, like there were less undistributed grant at the end of 2024, particularly related to the homeless prevention HP 3 and 4 and Cal HFA grants. So with like less grant undistributed, further decrease the unearned revenue. At the same time, lease liability decreased by 3 million from the lease payments made in 24 and mainly associated with the San Francisco building lease. However, there was an offset, an increase in the net pension liability for about 11 million. It was based on the actuarial variation from recognizing the effects of difference between the expected and actual expenses in the pension plan. Moving on to the revenue side, total operating revenue increased by $9 million in 2024. And here are some highlights. Exam application fee increased by 7 million due to more applicants for the exam in 2024 and the increased exam fees approved. Additionally, trust account revenue increased by 31 million, as mentioned earlier, due to the trust account balance increase and brought in more revenues. At the same time, there was an offset, a decrease of 36 million in grants revenue due to less other grants distributed such as for the HP 2 and 3 and consumer debt grants. On the operating side, total operating expense increased by 22 million. The expense for the chief trial counsel and admissions, these two largest office, they both have expense increased by about 8 million and 3 million respectively, both due to the higher personnel costs. And at the same time, the grants expense also increased by 11 million, attributed to more IOTA revenue distributed in 2024. On the non-operating side, excuse me, the net total non-operating revenue and expense increased by 4 million from higher investment return in 24 as well. So overall, the State Bar's ending net position or total net position in 2024 increased by about 103 million, mainly attributed to the significant and higher trust account revenue. It was also partially offset by the increase in the negative unrestricted or general fund net position, resulting from the general fund continue operating at a deficit in 2024. So this financial highlight only provide a snapshot of the financial position for the financial captions with the high dollar amounts like changes. So with more detailed information provided in the submitted agenda attachments and all the draft report. So with that, this concludes the first part of the presentation, and I will turn it over to Annie from MGO to continue to present the audit results. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coco. Good morning. My name is Annie Louie from Macias Junior O'Connell. I'm the engagement partner in charge of the external audits for the State Bar for fiscal year 24. Next slide, please. This covers the different deliverables, the different audits and engagements that we were engaged to perform for the State Bar. In this particular presentation, we'll go over the results. Please go on to the next slide. First of all, I'd like to go over the auditor's responsibilities under an audit engagement. The primary responsibility of the auditor is to express an opinion on the financial statements. We follow generally accepted auditing standards that are issued by the AICPA, as well as government audit standards, which are more restrictive, to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatements. One thing I always like to highlight is that we do cover controls over financial reporting and over compliance for the respective subject matters, but our testing of internal controls is not sufficient to opine on the effectiveness of internal controls. With that said, if we do identify any issues such as control deficiencies or non-compliance, that would be reported to you and communicated in our audit reports. Moving on to the next slide, this highlights management's responsibilities, and I know this is a lot of information on one slide. This is more detailed in the report, in our engagement letter, as well as in the report to the board. Just to highlight some of the key points, management holds the responsibilities for preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. And management is also responsible for establishing and maintaining effective internal control system that are relevant to the preparation of such financial statements and for compliance with the applicable requirements. Lastly, also management provides us with access to all information, documents, and other matters that are relevant to the course of our audit and to responding to our inquiries as well. We look to the Audit Committee to provide oversight of the State Bar's financial statements and compliance with the applicable requirements. In the next slide, highlight some of the key points. So first of all, in terms of the audit results, we issue unmodified opinions on all of our reports, and that's the highest level of assurance that you can achieve in any financials and compliance audits. Unmodified opinion means that there were no qualifications to our opinions on the respective reports. As I mentioned earlier, if we were to identify any deficiencies in internal controls, that would be reported to you in this particular item. And we're happy to say that there are no matters to be reported. A couple of items, significant accounting policies and practices. If there were any changes to accounting policies that may have been adopted due to new GASB pronouncements that were issued, that would be highlighted in these items. Note 3 to the basic financial statements provides more details on the State Bar's accounting policies. There were a couple of accounting statements that were effective in the fiscal year, but there were no significant changes in terms of its impact to the financial statements. And we did not have any exceptions to report in the State Bar's implementations of such pronouncements. Going on to the next slide, this is a lot of information. Again, more details is provided in the report to the board, but this highlights some of the significant accounting estimates that are necessary in the preparation of the financial statements. This chart summarizes the how the estimates are prepared, as well as some of the audit procedures that we have performed. And again, more details is provided in the detailed report. I am happy to report that we did not identify any issues in the estimates that are prepared in the financial statements. We perform various procedures, including analytics, review of supporting documents, such as the actuarial evaluation, and the key assumptions that are used to confirm that they are reasonable in the circumstances. Next, please. Other items that are required to be reported to you under auditing standards, if we had any issues with financial presentation and disclosures, if something was missing that we think should be included, any corrected or uncorrected audit misstatements that are considered significant, as well as all the items that are listed in this chart, we would be reporting that to you in this particular report. We have no matters to report, which is good news in this case. And the last item on here is relating to other information that are contained in the financial statements. The State Bar does require supplementary information, as well as some supplementary information or schedules that are included in the financial statements. The RSI, the required supplemental information, such as management's discussion and analysis, that is unaudited information. And for supplementary information, that is in relation to opinion to the financial statements. What that means is, while we're not opining on the RSI information, as well as in relation to opinion for the supplementary information, our responsibility is to read the information to ensure that they are consistent with the information that's provided in the basic financial statements, and for other information that may have come to us during the course of the audit. If there were material inconsistencies, that would be brought up to management for edits and modification, and if they were to be reported in the final report, the discrepancies would be reported by us in our report to the board. There were no such inconsistencies in the information presented. And then lastly, my last slide here, I just like to close out with a few accounting updates that will be effective in the next couple of years to the State Bar. So for fiscal year 2025, Statement 102 issued by the GASB relates to certain risk disclosures. This is to enhance the information that is presented in your financial statements about concentration, any type of concentration in suppliers, customers, funding, and whatnot. And then for the fiscal year 2026, there are 2 GASB statements that will be applicable, financials reporting modules. This is actually affecting proprietary funds, which the State Bar is subject to, as well as Statement 104 for disclosure of certain capital assets, which for the most part conforms consistencies in how capital assets, leased assets, as well as IT subscriptions are presented in the financial statements. So we will be working with management to prepare for the implementation of these accounting pronouncements in the upcoming years. This concludes my presentation. I will take any questions that you may have.
Yes, Trustee Stevens.
Thank you. Ms. Louie, can you go back to that slide that I just want to be sure I understand the policy change that you looked at back a couple slides. There you go. So I want to be sure I understand that correctly. There were policy changes that you had to look to make sure were implemented correctly, and your finding was that they were.
Correct.
Okay, so you don't have anything to tell us like they could have done this better or they missed this or anything like that. We're good.
Yes, you're good.
Okay. Had to translate that to English, something a lawyer could understand.
Thank you.
Great question. Great question, Trustee Stevens. Other questions? I have a couple short ones. One is I just want to confirm that the fiscal year for the State Bar is January 1 to December 31. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, just trying to make sure. And would you consider this to be a clean audit?
Yes, we issue unmodified opinions, like I said. So there were no issues. It's very good to not have any control deficiencies in the internal controls of the financial reporting, as well as compliance for the respective audits that were performed. And management was very cooperative in the audit process. So that made the whole process more smooth.
Very good. Are there is there any other presentations that you plan to make today? Do we need to go over the Legal Services Trust Fund? Do we need to review that briefly? Help me out as to what we should be doing before we go into motion.
So the Legal Services Trust Fund examination is part of our audit, and we don't have any significant matters to report. We issued an unmodified opinion on that report as well.
Okay, well, good. I just wanted to make sure we all heard that and that was the case. Any other questions any other trustee may have? Yes, please, Trustee Barahona.
Not a question, just a really deep appreciation for the work that the staff has done. And thank you, Annie, for your support. This is really exciting. I know that audits often, when you have an unmodified opinion, can feel somewhat anticlimactic. You've done all this work, but this is actually excellent work that's been done by the staff to get here. So I just want to acknowledge that, and certainly should be celebrated, and really appreciate all the ways in which the recommendations were implemented. So thank you, Annie, again, for your support and oversight as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Barahona. I echo your comments that I know I have appreciated working with Annie and with other with State Bar staff during this audit process. I've had meetings in between the audit meetings, one-on-ones, and I just very much appreciate the professionalism. And these look like good results to me. So I'm going to ask one more time for questions. And then if we're through, then I will start to entertain a motion. But first, questions? Okay, then. This is item 4.0. I will entertain a motion for approval of the annual financial statement pursuant to business code, including legal services trust fund. Maybe somebody can put this up so that, I'm not going to read what you all can read. All right. Approval of the financial audit statement, including the legal services trust fund report. Okay, that is what the motion is. So I guess it's resolved that the audit, here it is, okay. Recommends that the board receives and reviews the audited financial statements, statements of expenditures, mandatory fees, legal services trust fund report for the year ended December 31st, 2024. Further resolve that Audit Committee recommends that the Board of Trustees authorizes staff to file the State Bar's audited financial statements and legal services trust fund report with Supreme Court by and the state legislature by May 31st, 2025. Do I hear a motion?
I will move it.
Trustee Betahona makes the motion.
Second.
Trustee Stevens seconds the item. I'd like to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura is absent. Huser,
Aye.
Stevens, Tony,
Aye.
it's 4 ayes, 0 noes. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. All right. So we have made the recommendation to the board, and the board will take it up at its regular board meeting. So the next item that we have is item 4.4, which is modifications to the 2025 Audit Committee work plan. And I have asked to do the presentation on this, but I could use help with putting on the screen the modifications so we can all look at it together.
Angela, you're on mute. Do you need me?
Apologies. Did you want the modifications or the resolution?
The modifications.
Okay.
Let's review them and discuss them. Because this is an item that is new, I thought it deserved a discussion.
One moment, please.
Thank you. Just so you know, I don't plan to go through the whole work plan again. We've done that before. We have approved it. But there are modifications that I think we should consider as an audit committee. And it has to do with the use of AI by the state bar. And you'll see when it comes up that I'm recommending that the audit committee do 3 things. I'll just verbally talk about it till we get it up. One is that we should ask the staff for regular updates. How is AI being used by the state bar? The second thing is that the board of directors needs to have some guidelines when it's appropriate to use it, when it's not. I think many of us as trustees were very shocked to hear that AI had been used for exam questions. And that's probably, something we should ask about, we should talk about, is that appropriate? And then the third is monitoring, that we need to monitor. Okay. We'll get to the highlighted in just a minute.
Just while they're looking at that, can I just ask a
Yeah,
quick
please.
question?
Of course.
Have you considered whether this is within this issue? Well, I think it's a very important one, is within the scope of the audit committee, or whether it should be within the scope of some other committee of the board?
I think that's a very fair question, Trustee User. I appreciate you asking. I thought about that and I couldn't identify another committee that I thought was more appropriate, but I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on an alternate committee that might take this up.
Well, I haven't thought about it in advance, but one of the things I might think about is something like the executive committee itself, taking up something like this, so it goes to a broader group on the board. The reason I asked the question was it seemed out of character for the audit committee, and I don't know if it's within the scope of what would be considered like an audit committee charter, or whether we'd need to then change that scope. Maybe that's a question for Aline.
That's a fair question. It looks like Erica has her hand up.
Sure. So I'll just say, I think it could frankly go to either committee. So if the audit committee pursuant to our policy manual includes oversight of risk management and compliance efforts. So I think under that basis, it could go here. That being said, I think also the board executive committee could take it, looking at it from the, strategic and operational plans within goal 5. This is something that would ties well within that. And that would be something that the board executive committee has oversight over.
Thank you. So basically, what this is proposing is that the audit committee would work with staff to develop comprehensive reporting guidelines for departments using AI tools, including documentation of use cases, risk assessments, and performance metrics. Second is establishing a monitoring framework to track the AI performance, system performance, identify potential biases, and ensure alignment with the State Bar's AI use guidelines. We do have some guidelines, and then create a monitoring framework to, I might need some help either making it slightly smaller or scrolling. Maybe slightly smaller so you see the rest of it. Yes, thank you. To regularly evaluate AI systems for compliance with legal, ethical, and operational standards. And, the purpose of this is to, we have another one, receive scheduled updates from departments using AI tools. And I'm not going to go through all of it because that's the main purpose of it. Because the question brought up by the disclosure that AI was used for exam questions really brings up a bigger question of, I believe that the State Bar Board needs to have more involvement in making sure that we are assessing the risks properly, that we're partnering with the staff. While I may not personally like AI, I do believe there are appropriate uses for it, and there are inappropriate uses. And I think it's important for the State Bar to come up with a set of policies, monitoring, reporting, and that I believe the audit committee is a good place to do that. Like I said, in partnership with staff. Trustee Huser.
Yeah, my only concern here is, I think all of us were put on the audit committee because we have some financial background or whatever, or some perceived at least expertise in the financial area. I don't know that, at least for me, that extends into AI. And so I'm looking at number 3 that you just read, create a monitoring framework to regularly evaluate AI systems for compliance with legal, ethical, and operational standards. I personally would not be able to offer any expertise to that, and I think therefore that is beyond the scope of what an audit committee could do. We could assign some staff to engage a third party to evaluate, but I personally could not begin to assess legal compliance or ethical compliance or operational compliance with AI frameworks. I'm not even sure what that means. And so, at least as to number 3, I would have significant concerns.
Trustee Huser, I think that is an absolute fair concern to bring up. I don't know that it would be that anybody on this board necessarily has that expertise. I like very much your suggestion that some of this will require either the staff internally or through engaging external consultants have to be part of this. I don't have the expertise either, okay? And I'm not pretending. But to me, there's a difference between possessing the expertise and feeling and exercising responsibility for oversight. And I think that we as trustees have fallen short of that. And I'm proposing a way that we can get back on top of it. Trustee Berahona.
I think Leah actually had her hand up before me, so I'm gonna just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Leah, please.
That's
It's
okay.
hard to tell sometimes.
That's okay. Well, I just wanted to share, you mentioned this, we do have use guidelines and we've been doing quite a bit of work in this space. And I want to clarify that what happened with the bar exam was inconsistent with our own guidelines. So it's not because we haven't done a significant amount of work in this space internally, but to Trustee Huser's point, I think it would be helpful for the audit committee to perhaps engage an independent party to review the work that we have done. So you might want to put that in the plan or not, but I just think that would be helpful.
Thank you very much, Leah. That makes a lot of sense. Trustee Berahona?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess some of this I was going to ask, actually, Leah, you spoke to it, but a lot of this is being developed or has been developed internally already. And so my curiosity is, how does this line up with the current staff capacity on this? Is this in alignment and sort of, possible and realistic? That's what my first question. And then my second is that this is applicable to how we operate internally, the State Bar, and not what we require our vendors to do. And so I have some curiosity on how we can also think about the ways in which we require vendors to disclose specific AI usage and to what extent that's already happening. So that's my question, the two questions.
I'll let Erica answer the first one and go ahead the second one as well, Erica, if you want to, but yeah.
Yeah, so as far as staffing in this, so this would essentially be a collaboration across different offices within the State Bar, and work has already been done in this space to some extent as well. So in regards to establishing essentially a governance framework, what we're envisioning is this would be really use case specific, because depending upon what you're using generative AI for, the parameters and framework would be different depending on the stakes involved, the confidential nature of the information, and so forth. But what we're looking at right now and have started developing is really a framework for different use cases. And that's something that the audit committee could certainly look at. As far as multiple offices involved, about 2 months ago, we brought on the new Office of Operational and Digital Transformation. And so that's an individual that would be looking at this, as well as, to my mind, the Office of Compliance, for which we are currently recruiting. And then, of course, IT from the cybersecurity perspective as well. So we already have staff looking at this. It would just be something that is more formalized through review by the audit committee if adopted. And then as far as your second question, as to vendor involvement, Aline, please jump in if there's anything I'm misstating here, but that is something that, depending upon the vendor engaged, is addressed in certain circumstances on a case-by-case basis. So not across uses. And frankly, it's a little bit challenging, I'll just say, because there are many products that now just include AI as part of the product that are being rolled out, whether you want it or not, frankly. So that's certainly something that we can look into more as far as the contracts and inclusion and exclusion as well.
Yeah, I actually don't have the information about that and whether, which contracts would have it or not. But I also wanted to offer to the chair and the committee, in response to the question about the scope, is that, the audit committee's recommendations or, a review could also be reported out to the executive committee and the board. So that way they are also involved in the process. If there's any questions about, the parameters, etc. I think I agree with Erica's assessment that, there is at least, some scope that's aligned, but I do think it may be important to report it out to either executive committee or the board as the final decision makers, giving the breadth of the review.
Absolutely. That completely makes sense. I mean, that's the point of a committee, is to make recommendations to the full board. I think this is an issue that the full board is interested in and would want to make sure they had a say in. Absolutely. Trustee Stevens.
Yeah, I was going to say, in my experience, this kind of thing actually lives or resides in the governance committee. And short of having a governance committee, then it would reside with the executive committee. And the function, I think, that the audit committee would reasonably perform would be, once the policies themselves are established, the audit committee would then have some responsibility for making sure that they were implemented and followed. And the same would be true for, to the extent that vendors are under contract to have limitations on and follow policies about AI, the audit committee would be the committee that would make sure that the contracts were followed.
Thank you, Trustee Stevens. We certainly have more than one option here. Okay. I would suggest, I haven't seen the executive committee take this up. And I don't serve on the executive committee. And so I don't have a place other than the audit committee to take this up. And I think this is one of the areas. Certainly the audit committee is a viable option. So here's what I would like to do. This is something that's important, that the audit committee decides whether we want to accept this or not. Okay? As chair, I do not possess the authority just to add something on my own to our work plan, which is why I brought this forward as an agenda item for today's meeting. I will respect whatever decision is made. You each are independent thinkers and voters. And so I would like to go ahead and entertain a motion. The motion being to accept the, we have something coming up. Good. Thank you. That the audit committee approve the updated work plan as included in attachment A. And recommends that the board executive committee approve, because they do approve our work plans. So I would entertain a motion.
Would you consider a friendly amendment to the work plan before we entertain
Sure.
a motion that
Sure, I'd love to hear it.
put the language back up? Because I think it's important that it be clear that staff will be adopting policies. Audit committee would be, reviewing, compliance with those. So the actual work plan itself, that language, could you put that back up?
Angela, can you share the highlighted portion? Thank you.
So my friendly amendment would be to the work plan itself. Under number 1, instead of saying the audit committee would develop, it would say instruct staff to develop and review compliance. And then the same with number 2. And for number 3, I would suggest instruct staff and or an independent third party with expertise. And so for all four, it would say instruct staff. And then for number 3, it would specifically also refer to and or an independent third party with expertise.
Thank you very much for that. Could we see if we can, in real time, see if we can make these changes to this so that it's clear what we're voting on? And it doesn't need to be a amendment because no motion is on the floor. The motion could just be made as amended. So,
So Angela, to number 1 in the second column, you would add instruct staff at the beginning. Staff 2, great.
very good.
And then it would be the same for 3, or sorry, for 2, excuse me.
Yes.
And then for 3, it would be instruct staff and or an independent third party
Yes.
Very good.
with expertise 2. And then the 4th would be just instruct staff again.
Instead of the word receive, maybe present. Would that be okay? On 4? Because I think that's what the meaning is, to present, right, to the committee. Okay. And let's just make sure that do we have a 5 on this one? I just want to make sure that Trustee Huser, if there are any, it's 4. Okay. I really appreciate this, Trustee Huser. I think it makes it a stronger motion. So with those changes, may I consider that the item to be moved by Trustee Huser?
So moved.
I'd entertain a second.
Second.
Trustee Barahona, seconds.
I apologize. Does
May-
the motion does the resolution need to be modified to since it's attachment A as modified in the meeting?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Erica. I appreciate your attention to detail. Yes, thank you very much. This is the motion that is on the table, and thanks for putting it back up so that we all know what we're voting for. Angela, if I could ask for a roll call vote, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. Barahona,
Aye.
Buenaventura is absent. Huser,
Aye.
Stevens. Stevens, you're on mute.
Aye.
Thank you. Tony,
Aye.
4 ayes, 0 noes. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to try to respect everybody's time. We'll get through as much as we can. I actually want to go to the cybersecurity audit and assessment because I think that's quite critical. So thank you very much. We have our Chief Information Officer, Paras Gupta. If you can turn on your camera and we're ready for your presentation, please introduce yourself and we're ready for your presentation. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, Trustee Tony and members of the Audit Committee. My name is Paras Gupta and I'm the relatively new CIO to the State Bar. And I have a 1-slide presentation that provides you update on the work of the cybersecurity audit and assessment for 2025. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. and go from there. So. So you all can see my screen now. I know I said one slide, but really there's one slide with actual content on it. So if you can see my screen right now.
Yes, we can see
I will
it.
not go into presentation mode. I'm just going to show you the slide. So the update that I have for you today is that we are set to do a independent security audit and assessment for the bar every 2 years to evaluate risk and strengthen our safeguards. Last one was done in 2023, so we are ready to do one in 2025. The current status, we have drafted all the procurement document, the competitive procurement document for the request for offer, which includes a statement of work that covers the entire spectrum of the state bar's technology assets and digital footprints. It's very comprehensive. The scope is even expanded from the last few audits that were done. And a recommendation from our procurement team is that we leverage existing cooperative agreements for procurement through a list of pre-existing contracts. This would be the likes of the Department of General Services, the federal contracts, and other state leverage contracts. So it's more streamlined and it's more efficient to get a competitive and qualified vendor. The timeline for this is once we have the approvals in place, we will be looking to go out in June and hoping to conclude that by August, if not sooner. Our plan is to present this for a Board of Trustee approval at the September meeting, and then immediately execute the contract so that we can get the work with the vendor to do the assessment and audit and do a final presentation to the Audit Committee in the November meeting. That's a tentative timeline. It's very realistic. And lastly, I know we have a shorter time, but I wanted to just quickly highlight, and as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, talks about the benefits and outcomes, which really is that we continue to need to work to strengthen our cybersecurity posture. The work is never done. We want to improve our user training and awareness. That's a very good defense across the board. And evaluate how effectively the tools we have in place are getting us ready for vulnerabilities and threats. And also my overall personal goal is so that we have increase our visibility for what's been done and where we are in the state. So I know I kind of rushed through this. So my last thing is if you have any questions.
Thank you, Paris. Questions? All right. Well, I want to thank you for providing us this update. I also want to thank you for spending time to meet with me last week to go over this ahead of time. I really appreciate your leadership and think the State Bar is in good hands in your presence. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Tony. Thank you.
Okay, so I would next like to go to the annual report of the Public Trust Liaison. Enrique.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Enrique. Please introduce yourself, and we're happy to have your brief presentation.
Sure. I need some assistance with my slides. Here they go. All right. I'm really excited to present to the Audit Committee the 2024 annual report of the Office of the Public Trust Liaison. My name is Enrique Zúñiga. I am the Public Trust Liaison for the State Bar of California. A brief overview of the office. It was created in 2023 to improve accessibility and accountability within the State Bar system, focusing on discipline and admissions issues. Next slide, please. Here's a quick agenda for today's presentation. We're going to focus on some of the highlights, discuss the inquiries, talk about some of the implementations and changes. We're also going to talk about some recommendations made and absorbed. And we're also going to look at 2025 current contact center dashboard and trends and issues and a look ahead. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about some highlights. In 2024, we focused on the certified lawyer referral services that are offered by the State Bar. We enhanced the webpage with the assistance of communications to include a search tool that is powered by Power BI. And also, we offer an SMS communication for callers that enables callers to receive the information by text without the need of talking to a live person. We also implemented a new tracking ticketing system for our PTLI inquiries. Those are public trust liaison inquiries from members of the public, and which resulted in 32% of inquiries being resolved in one day. Also, one of the big highlights is that we did a pilot launch of the attorney-client bridge program in March of 2024. That program aims to resolve low-level attorney-client issues without the formal complaint process, which focuses on communications and return of file issues. Next slide, please. Looking at public trust liaison inquiries, in 2023, we had resolved 480. The following year, 2024, we nearly doubled at 959 resolved inquiries. In total, we received 976 inquiries, but by the end of 2024, we had resolved 959 of those. Something very interesting is that whenever we did in outreach in Spanish-speaking communities, it correlated with the spike in inquiries. The most common inquiries were 58% related to the attorney misconduct process, and admissions-related inquiries made up 8%. A big change for this year is that we implemented the inquiry form, which is available on our website, and that's the main source of inquiries for this year and last year. Next slide, please. A little bit more about the attorney-client bridge program. We refer to this as a pilot program, or sometimes we call it a soft launch, only because we made it available on our website without any communications or advertising push. We simply made it available for the people that navigated to our website. We had initial expectations of receiving approximately 200 in the first year, and we launched in mid-March. We received 570 submissions. That there's a pie graph here that shows 60% of the submissions were related to communication issues, and 40% were related to return of file issues. Again, one of the things about this program that's really interesting is this is offering clients an opportunity to resolve potential issues with their attorneys upfront proactively without the complaint process. Next slide, please. Now one of the things about our office is that we can make recommendations for improvement. As part of our last year's report, the Office of the Public Trust Liaison provided recommendations for improvements to OCTC and the admissions department. These were based on observations, trends, and critiques that were derived from our inquiries received throughout the year. The inquiries I just described is what fuels our recommendations. That is our direct connection to the public. We listen, we observe trends, and we can make these recommendations. Before I get into it, last year was our first time making recommendations, and I want to acknowledge and show appreciation for OCTC and admissions for their responsiveness and collaboration with our office. We made recommendations and they listened and provided implementations. For OCTC, and I'll go briefly, let me just focus on one of the most critical one that we made recommendation for. When a complaint is closed, subsequently complaining witnesses tend to submit additional information, and many times that additional information provides new allegations. We suggested that when additional information is received to be treated as a new complaint, and that was implemented. A new case handling procedure by OCTC implemented to treat all complaint submissions as a new case, unless it was an active case. And the report gets more into the details, and then moving on to admissions, I know we're pressed for time. One of the recommendations that we're really proud of is, as a public trust liaison, I received inquiries where the public wanted to supplement moral character for an ongoing applicant. We suggested that they develop a process for the public to submit additional information right on the website, which they did. Now that is a function that admissions has put together. Next slide, please. Now, recommendations for 2025. These were based on the observations that we saw and the trends in the 2024 inquiries. For the Office of Admissions, we are recommending a development of an electronic form for attorneys to self-report criminal proceedings, and also enhanced communication around the abatement process. For admissions, we are recommending an enhancing of existing language for moral character determination communications, and to create clear diagrams for different pathways to attorney licensure. Focusing a little bit about that diagram, it is very common. It's a very common inquiry for my office to receive general applicants to say, how can I become an attorney? I'm a foreign attorney. How do I become a California attorney? And we thought it'd be really useful to have a diagram that we can share and provide consistent communication throughout the bar to answer these inquiries.
Thank you, Enrique. If I could ask you to kind of wrap it up, I'd sure.
Yes. Next slide, please. This is very briefly the contact center dashboard, which shows that overwhelmingly in the year 2024, our most popular queue was the lawyer referral service call. Next slide, please. That's just a way for, this next slide shows that the public spoke and we listened. We improved the search tool and provided SMS via the phone system. And just to recap, people can receive that text in under 2 minutes. Next slide, please. For 2025, we're observing a different set of trends. LRS continues to be the most popular queue, but closely behind it are CTAP related questions. They are beginning to catch up. And also, as was explained earlier by the public comment, the February 2025 exam provided an increase in calls. We received a total so far of 8,658 admission related calls. Next slide, please. Looking ahead, we are always trying to streamline and help the public efficiently. We are introducing a website chat feature that allows the public to ask general questions and ultimately chat with the real representative. And we are going to make an official push for the attorney-client bridge program with our fully staffed, now 2 investigator team, and myself and our principal program analyst, Craig von Freeman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very impressive results, I have to tell you. Any questions from trustees? Yes, Leah, please.
Yeah, not a trustee, but I just wanted to remind the committee that the attorney-client bridge program is something that we did a soft launch of, and then we're successful in securing additional licensing fee revenue to support. So when Enrique talks about fully staffed in 2025, we're able to do that because of the fee bill, which did provide staffing to support attorney-client bridge under the broader umbrella of diversion. So just want to make sure as you guys think about diversion, it's not all happening in OCTC.
Thank you, Leah, for that clarification. I think that's very important to realize that diversion happens also at the public trust liaison area. Yes, Trustee Barahona.
I didn't see this, but thank you again, Enrique. Is this some of this great data available for the public to see?
Yes, the data is in more detail in our published report, and there's explanation of the data, and it does go into detail.
Okay.
And Trustee Barahona, we're also working on making the dashboard that outlines the contact center interactions with the public in particular, making that public. So posting it via a link on our website. I don't know. That's something Erica's been working on. Not sure of the time.
Actually, there is a dashboard that shows our current call volume that could be monitored by the public, and some of these graphs came directly from that dashboard.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank you for your work, Enrique, for coming and providing this comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to do a time check here. The time check being that it's 11:30, and I think we can finish the other two items in about 10 minutes. However, I also want to excuse any trustee that has an 11:30 appointment. It's fine to leave because these are report items. They do not have voting, which means they do not require even a quorum. But I am going to stay, and I invite those who can to show respect to the people who have been waiting for their reports. And so I'm going to take a pause, and anyone who needs to leave, it is absolutely fine. You're not holding up our business or anything.
I unfortunately have a hard stop and another.
Very good.
So
Thank you, Trustee
apologize.
Hughes, for coming, and thank you. That you had told me that. That's why I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that. Thank you. And Trustee Stevens, are you in the same?
Same.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Stevens.
Thank you.
Trustee Huser.
Excellent
Trustee
meeting.
Barahona, do you also have an 11:30?
I do, Chair Tony.
You
Sorry about that.
are excused.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. And then I will invite the report on the State Bar's Whistleblower Anti-Retaliation Program. Oh, yes, Aileen, did you have a question?
I was going to offer, Chair, if you would prefer, and given that some members are unable to join, this is certainly a report that we could also defer to the next Audit Committee meeting. Happy to make the presentation. You know, my colleague Shelby King is here, but there are no urgent time concerns around this item, and so just wanted to offer for your consideration if you'd like to have that presented at the next meeting.
I presume there is on the I mean there's a posted summary or report on
That
there.
is correct. That is correct.
I think that I'd rather do it now because my thinking is that we've already postponed one item earlier, and I'd like to get these two items presented now, and then the trustees who aren't here have the opportunity to review. But I'd like to do that. But thank you for the offer.
Of course. And so with that, let me invite Shelby King, who's Assistant General Counsel within the Office of General Counsel, to make the presentation for the second year in a row.
Welcome, Shelby.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
So as background, the Board of Trustees approved an interagency agreement with the California Department of Justice for the Whistleblower Anti-Retaliation Program at their May 2023 meeting. The agreement took effect on June 1st of 2023. The program permits individuals to bring whistleblower and whistleblower anti-retaliation complaints against State Bar personnel, which includes current and former employees, agents, officers, and members of the Board of Trustees and subentities. The DOJ reviews complaints to determine if there is a good faith allegation that State Bar personnel engaged in an improper governmental activity. So this means that they failed to act competently, ethically, legally, or properly in accomplishing their duties, and/or they engaged in whistleblower retaliation. The whistleblower program was placed in the DOJ to ensure that the investigations are independent and conducted by a reputable party with extensive experience conducting similar types of investigations. The complaints are submitted directly to the DOJ without any review or screening by the State Bar. The goal is to increase public trust that whistleblower complaints are taken seriously. Confidentiality and independence are important to ensuring that individuals feel comfortable reporting their complaints. After the independent investigation, and if there is a substantiated finding of improper governmental activity, then the State Bar will work with the DOJ to review the necessary information and respond appropriately. Again, the State Bar is not involved with screening complaints before the DOJ determines that there is a finding of improper governmental activity. The report before you today presents updated statistics on the program. We last presented to the committee on March 11th of last year, and that presentation included statistics through February 15th of 2024. This report provides updates through April 7th of this year. So since the program started, the DOJ has reviewed approximately 150 complaints. 65%, which is down from 72% the last time we reported, of the complaints received were not allegations of improper governmental activity against State Bar personnel. This includes 44 complaints that were against an attorney and not State Bar personnel, and 53 complaints that were not allegations of improper governmental activity against State Bar personnel or a complaint against a California attorney. However, those numbers do not include all of the spam complaints that the DOJ receives, and so this could include complaints sent to the DOJ along with other entities and individuals that don't specifically relate to the State Bar or its licensees. 35% of the complaints were against State Bar personnel, but were closed after the DOJ analyzed the facts and determined that there was no good faith allegations of improper governmental activity. And 3 of those complaints moved to the investigation stage, but the complaints were closed again after the DOJ determined that there was no finding of improper governmental activity. And a brief note about a security incident. So the DOJ security unit received a threat in one of the emails that was sent to the whistleblower program and consequently blocked the incoming emails for a period of time in March. So we're asking members of the public who submitted complaints during March and who have not heard back from the DOJ to please resubmit those complaints, and we'll update the website to also reflect that information. And then in response to feedback from this committee, the webpage on the whistleblower program was updated last fall to emphasize that complaints against attorneys should be submitted directly to the Office of Chief Trial Counsel instead of the whistleblower program. The language was also updated to emphasize that the DOJ independently reviews all the complaints without prior screening from the State Bar. And then lastly, a note on the budget. Since June 1st of 2023, the State Bar spent approximately $71,000 of the $100,000 that was allocated to the whistleblower program in year 1. General Counsel anticipates seeking board approval for an additional $50,000 to fund the 3rd year of the contract with the DOJ at the May board meeting. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation. I do have a question, which is the contract with the Attorney General. Is it based upon a flat fee or the number of complaints or the number of hours they spend? I'm just curious.
If my recollection serves me right, it's an hourly rate, and they have a sort of a list of different rates that apply depending if they're handling it with internal attorney, or sometimes they have to engage an external investigator, but it's an hourly rate, and we get billed on monthly basis based on the hours that were spent.
And I believe it's an hourly rate not to exceed $500, and then investigations should not exceed $50,000 without exceptional circumstances and prior approval.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that detail. I have another question. It's not important enough that if you don't have the answer, it's a curiosity question, which is this strictly negotiated on a one-to-one basis, or do you know if the Attorney General's office themselves has their own little, schedule of how much they charge? We're not the only state agency, is what I'm trying to say, that engages with the Attorney General's office. Do you happen to know whether it's just a one-off for every agency, or if they have their own little sheet?
It's my understanding that the rates that we're offered are aligned or consistent with the rates they offer to other state agencies or those who contract with them.
Very good. That makes sense, that there would be a rational system that is applied fairly to all state agencies. So thank you very much. Shelby, I really appreciate the report. I have a special interest in whistleblower protections because a buddy of mine founded the National Whistleblower Center in 1986, and I am a founding board member and still serve on that board. So it is whistleblower protection always has a special place, at least in my heart. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, it looks like from what I can see, we have one additional item, and it's actually an item that I am very interested in because I had talked about it. And this is the proposed proactive enforcement plan for uncertified lawyer referral services. And, I got my little pet projects, and this is one of them. So welcome, Catherine.
Good morning still. How's everybody doing? Can you see my screen okay?
I can see your screen fine. Thank you for sharing it.
Okay, let me just present. Go to presentation mode, excuse me.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, wrong view. Sorry.
That's okay. I have to fight with these things myself.
There we go.
Alrighty.
Oh, 1 second. Okay, so I'm Kathy Ongiri. I am the program director for the Office of Professional Competence. And today I'm here to talk to you about the enforcement for uncertified lawyer referral services. So in 2021, this item did come before the board, and at that time, the board declined proactive uncertified lawyer referral enforcement due to resource limitations. Now, just in terms of background, all client referring entities, with a few exceptions, must be certified under Business and Professions Code 6155 and 6156. Now, there are some tech platforms that might qualify as LRSs, but we haven't received very many complaints on them, and the impact on the public is unknown. So in terms of our current approach, when we receive a complaint, we investigate it. When necessary, we consult with OGC and issue cease and desist letters. And our current approach is really kind of based off of volume and is flexible around that. So in terms of a potential proactive model, what we could do is conduct internet searches, do specific outreach to different LRS programs. We can review and monitor automated kind of search engine alerts. And then once we get a lead, we would focus on a suspected business, evaluate the results of the search. And from there, we would work with, we would send requests for additional information. And based off the information we would receive, if we determine the activity is not LRS activity, then we would close it out. If we determine that it is, then we would work with the Office of General Counsel to consider offering certification opportunities or pursuing legal remedies. And so you can see here on the left is the enforcement staff, and the staffing needs are kind of on the right. And so what this results in is about 1.5 to 3 full-time employees. That's what the hours would break down to. And when we get to OGC, what the enforcement options are cease and desist letters. They can file for civil actions for penalties. They can request injunctive relief or negotiate compliance agreements, and then they would monitor ongoing compliance. Now, some in considerations, if we are looking to expand the program, we do have to consider our resource limits with our 15% targeted vacancy rate. Between 2023 and 2024, we received about 64 complaints. And most of the complaints that we receive are actually filed by attorneys based off of fee sharing concerns. And the public complaints that we receive typically involve our certified LRSs, and we have an established system and kind of protocol to deal with that. Finally, we would need to do some additional legal research on our subpoena authority and our ability to do covert operations or investigations around uncertified LRS activity. And then, so in terms of what we're recommending, we are recommending staying with the reactive approach that we have right now. And if the audit committee is okay with that, we would expand our operational metrics to include the number of complaints received, the source of complaints, and the disposition of complaints. And if the committee is interested in recommending a proactive approach, we would like to get additional data to kind of do a cost benefit analysis. And that would include revenue generated from the penalties and then the cost of the program.
Yeah.
So that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. I have a couple questions. So let's talk a little bit about the universe. What can you tell me about the universe of certified lawyer referral services that exist today? What can you tell me about that?
Well, we certify all of those agencies. We have them listed on our website. We are currently kind of undergoing a process to determine if we need to modify our rules. Our rules are quite old. And so we have kind of been working with stakeholders as well to engage with them just to see what we can do to really increase our impact of our certified lawyer referral services and to really kind of expand that access to the public. So we are working specifically with the commission. Oh, I just forgot the
Access Commission.
Yes, the Access Commission, and Jack London has been doing a number of kind of surveys with various stakeholders. So once we get that information back, we do anticipate making some changes to the certified LRS rules. And we do have a number listed on our website. As you heard from our public trust liaison, that is one of the #1 issues that the public want. And so that's kind of what we have going on with the certified LRSs now. Would you like additional details on like
No,
location?
this is good. This is good.
Okay.
This is the level I'm looking at. Thank you.
Great.
But I'm gonna ask some questions that are based upon me not being an attorney and not really understanding how it works. Okay, so they're gonna be very basic questions. So one is it voluntary for attorneys to be listed, or is it something that because they pay bar fees, they're automatically in some giant database? How does that work?
Yeah, so our lawyer referral services are entities that apply to us to get certification, and then those entities have attorney members. So
Got it.
yeah, so there's not a huge database that
Got it.
everybody kind of gets in the pool. It's really an attorney, like many, like for example, the Bar Association of San Francisco has a certified lawyer referral program.
Right.
And they solicit their members to get involved with it because of, business opportunities and increasing their caseloads and also helping the public.
Okay. And so why would an attorney be interested in signing up for that? What's in it for them? What's their incentive?
Oh, well, I think there's some business incentives. It does kind of create a stream of clientele.
Got it.
Depending on the various areas. I think that's probably the main benefit, as well as attorneys who want to give back to the public. There's ways for them to, being on this will give them the opportunity to maybe interact with clients that they might not get in the traditional, through traditional formats.
So they sign up. do they pay like an annual membership fee, these attorneys?
Yes, the
Okay.
majority of them do.
Okay, so when you talk about fee disputes for complaints, what does that mean?
I'm sorry, fee disputes for certified complaints or uncertified complaints?
Maybe it's uncertified, but there was a part where you talk about complaints. And
Oh,
you
okay.
talk
So
about complaints about fees are the number one complaints.
yeah, so let me clarify. In terms of the complaints that the majority of complaints that we receive regarding the uncertified
Yes,
LRSs
thank you.
are from attorneys. And it is around the fee sharing rules. They're unable to share fees with certain entities or with non-lawyers. And so that they usually call when they're wanting to become a member and just ask, is this okay? Is this organization a certified LRS? Because that is one of the carve outs under the fee sharing rules.
Okay, and so I assume that if an attorney calls you up and says, "Can I do this? Are they certified?" You would say they're not certified and probably you shouldn't do it, something like that.
Well, they usually get to us through the ethics hotline, and so we don't give legal advice. It's just research assistance service. So we do point them to our website where we list the certified LRSs. And then we provide them the rules that would apply in that situation, including the business and profession code sections, as well as the fee sharing rules. And then we might provide some, depending on the specifics of their scenario, we might provide some additional resources for them to consider before making that business decision.
So, okay, we have certified lawyer referral services. We have uncertified lawyer referral services. Are the uncertified lawyer referral services, are they illegal?
Yes.
Okay. And is it legal for an attorney to accept references, referrals from a uncertified legal service? You know what I'm saying? Referral service.
Yeah, it could violate a number of rules.
Okay. I'm asking this because I'm wondering if there's another approach to this about um, educating attorneys not to that I don't know what kind of attorney educate. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know, I don't have insight. But if another approach might be the, cutting off the supply for the uncertified so that when they are trying to recruit attorneys say, "Show me your certification," and if they can't, sorry, no can do. And I'm just trying to figure out different strategies because I get your point about staffing. We're not in a position to be adding new staff just for this right now. Bad timing, okay? And I get that. Just brainstorming about other pathways.
Yeah, so I think that we actually have a really unique opportunity to do some education around our lawyer referral services, especially with some of the work that the Justice Commission is doing with us and reaching out to our shareholders, because we're getting a lot of information from kind of all aspects of like how we can make this program better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we could eat, and with that, when we roll out the changes and kind of being more, we want to be more collaborative with our LRSs throughout the state. I think that there would be opportunities for us to provide some additional education around this. Specifically, we can do some short videos around the rules or what is required or
Mm-hmm.
what they should be aware of when they're deciding whether or not to sign up with companies like this. I think that we could definitely do some education around that for our licensee population.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Kathy, for your presentation here and for your willingness to answer questions. I don't think we're in a position to move to do a lot of work on this in terms of the various priorities. But if it can't, if the you know if some of these goals can be achieved by incorporating them in how to promote the licensed ones, okay, how to promote them more by de-promoting the unlicensed ones, both among attorneys and among people seeking legal services. That might be a good start. So thank you very much. I appreciate your.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk about this and your interest in this item. I think it's just a really great time for you to bring this up because we are going to be rolling out some really interesting stuff around our LRSs and some new stuff to really try to get more access for the public. So thank you so much for bringing this up and allowing me to speak to you about it today.
Thank you very much. I believe we're through our agenda. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. I want to thank everybody for attending the meeting. I am going to declare this meeting of the Audit Committee of the State Bar adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.